Hello and welcome to the news on NTA International. I am Elizabeth Omori. You can watch this news on Vision TV 247 and other platforms displayed on your screen. And our sign language interpreter is Hannah Olainka. Now let's take a look at the headlines. President Tinubu congratulates Christians as they commemorate Easter. Central Bank of Nigeria raises capital requirements for banks. UN court orders Israel to ensure urgent humanitarian assistance into Gaza. President Bola Tinubu joins the Christian faithful to commemorate Easter, a significant moment and a glorious celebration of the triumph of life over death. In a statement signed by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngelale, the President greets Christians in Nigeria and around the world on this occasion, emphasizing love, sacrifice and compassion as the patent themes of this solemn season, and that the sacrifice of Jesus Christ for humanity is an emphatic lesson for leaders and all Nigerians to yield to selflessness and compassion and be steadfast in the pursuit of a united, peaceful and prosperous nation. The President commends Nigerians for the sacrifices they have made in the past few months for the nation to be steered to the path of recovery and sustainable growth, assuring them that the seeds of patience which they have sown are beginning to sprout and will in no time bring forth an abundance of good fruits. As Christians celebrate the victory of life over death and as exemplified by the resurrection of Jesus, President Tinubu assures all citizens that Nigeria will triumph over its challenges as this administration remains firmly committed to this end. Today is observed as Good Friday by Christians world over. In this report, Omenka Amarachuku takes a look at the significance of the day in Christendom.
Was bleeding from a beating, there were stripes upon his back.
Good Friday is a day to commemorate the crucifixion of Jesus Christ on the cross of Calvary, which precedes Easter Sunday. In some Christian denominations, the passion of Christ is demonstrated through the rituals of Station of the Cross.
Death on the cross is not a good death. One will ask, why will the day somebody died will be tagged Good Friday, good? It was tagged Good Friday because that was the day that the price of sin of man was paid at the cross of Calvary.
After 3 days he rose, so we are heading there. So after this gloomy period, we are expecting the resurrection. And then this week reminds us about sacrificial leadership. Christ was not about himself, about his own interests. He came in order to be there for others.
For many Christians, Good Friday provides an opportunity for sober reflection on the suffering and death of Jesus Christ for the redemption of mankind before his resurrection on Easter Day.
He sacrificed, he poured out himself for others. So I wish that our leaders, political leaders especially, and even religious leaders will adopt the attitude of Christ to be pouring the resources, pouring the energy, pouring the talent they have for the people.
The actions of our Lord, we can say today, brought forth deliverance, salvation to anyone who believes and calls upon his name. So this is one fundamental thing that every Christian who celebrates Good Friday will never forget.
Death on the cross of Calvary signifies that the price of sin has been paid and we are no longer slaves to sin but slaves to righteousness.
Good Friday is also important for Christians to internalize the lessons of the period and rebuild a deeper relationship with God. In Abuja, Omenka Amarachuku, NTA News.
And Nigerians have been reminded of the importance of making sacrifices for one another and the nation, just as Jesus Christ died for the salvation of mankind. This formed the central message of clergies in Abuja as Christians commemorate Good Friday. Ekene Unduli brings us details.
Christians across the world commemorate the Good Friday as a day that Jesus Christ died on the cross of Calvary for humanity, so that he could save mankind from sins and condemnation. Most Christian denominations commemorate the day with church service to reflect on the supreme sacrifice paid by Jesus Christ. At the Church of Epiphany, Gariki, Abuja, it was a celebration of love and sacrifice, as Reverend Ifanya Kunna reminded the congregation of the essence of the death of Jesus Christ.
The lesson we learn from this is the lesson on love. We should love one another unconditionally. This love should be sacrificial. We should be ready to pay a price for our nation.
Other clergies further harped on the significance of the day, emphasizing that the death of Jesus has brought victory for humanity.
Impact of today is for us to reflect on what Christ died for, and don't allow the death of Christ to be in vain.
Do you know that if Christ hadn't died, we all would have been doomed for destruction? But he died as this penal substitution, taking what could have been our penalty.
Sacrifice, love, and peace is what today connotes. And today is called good because today also the foundation of Christianity has been laid.
As Christians commemorate the day, clergies are advising Nigerians and indeed all Christians to imbibe the lessons of sacrifice as reflected in the death of Jesus Christ and apply same towards building a better Nigeria. Ekene Ndulwe, NTA News.
Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu attended the Jumat service at the National Mosque, Abuja, which later turned out to be a Thanksgiving service for his 72nd birthday. State House correspondent Musbao Dan Wahab reports.
Happy birthday again.
He had opted for a low-key birthday anniversary with clear advisory to his lovers and supporters. But which other favors of his Lord will he deny? The birthday boy chose the National Mosque to show gratitude to his Creator, apparently for the gifts of life and the opportunity to touch lives. With this anniversary on a Jummah, it is indeed a Good Friday. The sermon of a chief imam, translated, coincidentally preached support to the leaders as part of the recommended good deeds in the months of Ramadan.
There's a great prayer to our leaders for Allah's support, for guidance, that they will do the right thing for the benefit of millions of people under their watch.
On behalf of his principal, Vice President Kashim Shettima thanked God for his benevolence to the president.
For the good health, for the serenity of mind, for the wisdom for Mr. President to shepherd the ship of the state and catapult the nation to greater heights. Let's keep him in our prayers. Let's pray for his good health, for his commitment towards repositioning the Nigerian nation.
Allahumma hafaz Ra'isana Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Selected imams of the National Mosque offered special prayers for the president on his special day and for God's continuous mercy on the country. In Abuja, Musbao Wahab, NTA News.
And former President Muhammadu Buhari followed up his public statement with a phone call to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in which he personally passed on his best wishes for a happy 72nd birthday to the president. In the course of the conversation, the former president said he is fully committed to the success of the APC administration under President Tinubu. In this regard, President Buhari prayed for Tinubu's success, saying that prayer Praying for a leader is imperative as his success and well-being are for the nation, adding that the accomplishments of the new administration must be seen as national achievements. And out to other news, the Central Bank of Nigeria has raised the capital requirements for commercial, merchant and non-interest banks in Nigeria to maintain a safe, sound and stable banking system. In a circular sent to all banks and signed by Director of Financial Policy and Regulations Department of the CBN, Haruna Mustafa, indicates that commercial banks with international authorization are to meet the minimum requirement of 500 and 200 billion naira for national banks, 50 billion for regional and merchant banks, while 20 and 10 billion naira were set for non-interest banks at national and regional levels. The Apex Bank says all banks are required to meet the minimum capital requirements within 24 months, starting from 1st of April 2024 to 31st of March 2026. This move is set to be in line with Section 9 of the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2020. And out to the foreign scene, the highest court has ordered Israel to ensure urgent humanitarian assistance to Gazans as worries of impending hunger grew after almost 6 months of unrelenting violence. Despite the UN Security Council's approval of a resolution earlier this week calling for an immediate ceasefire, heavy combat and shelling continued throughout the region. According to the judges, this meant providing Palestinians in Gaza with food, water, power, fuel, housing, clothing and necessities for hygiene, in addition to medical supplies and treatments. Palestinians in Gaza are no longer facing only a risk of famine, but famine is setting in, the Hague-based court said. South Africa had asked the court to bolster a previous order it issued in January for Israel to allow aid into Gaza to take account of the further deterioration of the situation on ground. The United Nations has warned that famine is ever closer to becoming a reality in northern Gaza and said Gaza's health system is collapsing due to ongoing hostilities and access constraints. While the war has turned much of the territory into a devastated wasteland, Israel has also imposed a siege on its 2.4 million people, eased only by occasional aid deliveries. Now, Russia has blocked the renewal of the mandate of United Nations experts monitoring the application of sanctions against North Korea for another year. Majority of Security Council members are, however, concerned about the development of Pyongyang's nuclear program. Comfort Fashion reports.
The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council.
The move made by Russia was met with a burst of criticisms.
러시아의 이번 거부권 행사는 핵미사일 개발과
South Korea's foreign ministry, while criticizing the move, said Russia had made an irresponsible decision despite its status as a permanent member of the UN Security Council. The U.S. State Deputy Permanent Representative, Robert Wood, also says U.S. is deeply disappointed by Russia's veto, accusing Moscow of seeking to hide its growing military cooperation.
Today's vote was nothing more than the attempt by one council member to silence the independent, objective investigations into DPRK Security Council violations.
This veto does not demonstrate any concern for North Korean people or for the efficacy of sanctions.
Russia's ambassador Vasilina Benza said the sanctions regime adopted with the intention of preventing nuclear weapons proliferation was losing its relevance and also to a great extent detached from reality. North Korea has been under mounting sanctions since 2006, put in place by the UN Security Council in response to its nuclear program. And since 2019, Russia and China have tried to persuade the Security Council to ease the sanctions, which had no expiration date. China abstained rather than joining Russia in the veto, and all other members had voted in favor of renewing the expert panel. Comfort, Fashion, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. Let's take a breather. International. And we're not done with our foreign stories. Senegal's president-elect holds meeting with outgoing President Macky Sall at the presidential palace. The meeting, which came after weeks of crisis surrounding the vote, suggests a swift and peaceful handover. Comfort Fashion reports.
The outgoing president received both men Bassirou Diomaye Faye and Ousmane Sonko in what his office called a courteous meeting, where they discussed at length the major issues for the state as well as the inauguration ceremony. According to provisional results, Faye won the first round of the vote outright with 54.3%, far ahead of Sall's hand-picked candidate, former Prime Minister Amadou Ba, who came second with 35.8% of the vote. Senegal's constitutional court could declare Faye the official winner, which would make a handover possible before April 2nd, the official end of Sall's term. Faye was only freed from prison 10 days before the election, along with his mentor Ousmane Sonko, and is now set to become the 5th president of the West African country of about 18 million people. He has promised to restore national sovereignty and implement a program of left-wing Pan-Africanism. Comforts, Fashion, NTA News.
Still on the foreign scene, a bus carrying worshippers fell off a bridge on a mountain pass, killing at least 45 persons, with only one surviving. Authorities in South Africa believe the bus was traveling from neighboring Botswana to the town of Moria for Easter pilgrimage.
According to the Limpopo provincial government, the bus veered off the Mamatlakala bridge and plunged 50 meters into a narrow valley before bursting into flames. Minister of Transport, Sendasiwe Chikunga, who visited the scene, announced that investigation into the cause of the crash is underway.
Were people that were traveling from Gaborone in what is this place, Botswana, to the church Moria. It's a mountainous road with sharp curves. The message that we send to our travelers, particularly those that are using buses and taxis, is that they also have to choose routes, as we said when we're launching our Easter weekend road safety, that it is important that they also try by all means to choose routes that are safer and probably better and fit.
Meanwhile, the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, has conveyed his condolences to the government of Botswana, families and friends of the deceased. Authorities in the northern province of Limpopo said the sole survivor of the crash was an 80-year-old child who is in critical condition and receiving medical attention. The Zionist Christian Church has its headquarters in Moria, and its Easter program attracts hundreds of thousands of people. Comfort, Fashion, NTA News.
Away from foreign stories, the Rivers State chapter of the All Governing Progressives Congress has described as deceitful the purported declaration of support by some top members of the Rivers State PDP and appealed to those dining with both sides of the table to come out and publicly profess where their interests lie. The party's leadership was speaking during a media briefing where it condemned the floating of the recent PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar's banner behind the table, where the desperate and fictitious declaration for the president was made.
These persons can never forgive President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Neither would they forgive His Excellency Ezenwoye Wike and the APC Rivers over the sin of their woeful electoral defeat. Of course, it follows, therefore, that anyone whose action or inaction contributed to their dangerous fall is inadvertently their sworn enemy. No wonder they are surreptitiously targeting to cut out a pound of flesh from the Honorable Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. What a cul-de-sac. A spectacularly failed mission indeed.
Party cautioned PDP to concentrate on service and leadership and find a way out of resolving its internal wranglings instead of dragging the president and FCT minister into its woes. And President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, emphasized that global peace is essential to achieving economic prosperity for countries around the world. Speaking to newsmen on arrival from Geneva, Switzerland, where he attended the 148th meeting of the Interparliamentary Union Assembly, Senator Akpabio urged countries to collaborate to prevent armed conflicts because they lead to the proliferation of arms and weapons, thereby spreading insecurity.
If you call on rain, it won't rain in only one person's roof. It will be everywhere. So it's important that when there is insecurity in any part of the world, it affects the others. Almost like HIV. If you are not infected, you are affected. I think it's important that we have peace in the globe. It's important because even these arms we are talking about, where after the war, the arms will still be on the ground all over. And some may find their way into Africa. Many have already found their way into Africa. See the Libyan experience and what happened in Niger, and thereafter what happened in Borno State. So when it is happening, don't just say, oh, it is in Gaza. You watch out. At the end, when the war is over, the amount of arms that have entered into that region may end up in countries that have been very peaceful.
Stated with President Bola Tinubu has clocked 72 and wishes Nigerians a glorious celebration of Easter.
We wish him more health, we wish him more wisdom, and we wish him more prosperity. Not for himself, because he's already a prosperous man, but for Nigeria. As more income comes into Nigeria, automatically through him Nigeria will prosper. And above all, we wish him peace. Peace of the Lord that passeth all understanding. I've also sent my message to the Chief of Defense Staff on the demise of the 16 soldiers that were brutally and in a horrific manner murdered in the Niger Delta region. And I have said that I will continue to encourage it. I will personally see them, that whether we bring justice to them or we bring them to justice, the major thing is that justice must be done. My message for Easter is that we should live just like Christ. He died for us. We should be sacrificial. We should carry one another along.
Akpabio attended the IPU for the second time as an executive committee member. Habitat security, the Nigerian Armed Forces have continued to reposition and restructure the force through training and adoption of cutting-edge technologies in line with contemporary military hardware with the rule of engagements and reference to human rights. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, affirmed this at the 2024 Commanders meeting in Abuja. It was an avenue for reassessment for the Armed Forces operations and chart a new course for enhanced professionalism in discharging their duties.
Now, various theaters of operations have been noted and utmost attention will be given to them. Furthermore, we must prioritize the welfare and professional development of our personnel. As commanders, we have a responsibility to ensure that their well-being, provide them with the necessary resources and support, and create an environment that nurtures their growth and development. Let us invest in their training, mentorship, and career progression, recognizing that their success is tied to the success of our operations. I would also like to emphasize the importance of building and maintaining strong relationships with the communities we serve. The trust and support of the local populace are critical in our efforts to counter insurgency, terrorism, and other security challenges.
He further noted that the armed forces will not relent in performing its constitutional role of defending the nation's territorial integrity. The Voice of Nigeria, VON, and Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, are upscaling collaboration to create positive narratives about the reliability and stability of the nation's capital market in order to attract more foreign investments to the country's economy. This came to the fore when the Director General Vaughan paid a courtesy visit on the Director General of SEC, Lamido Yuguda, at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja.
The visit, which was like a homecoming for the DG Voice of Nigeria, Jibril Babandache, whom as a reporter extensively covered the capital market as well as activities of the Commission, is geared towards reactivating and strengthening the existing collaboration between Vaughan and the Securities and Exchange Commission in the areas of content and awareness creation.
You need to tell your story, retell it, keep telling it again, so that even somebody who pretends that he has forgotten, when you remind him or her, you will know that these things are only achieved when you are deliberate about creating your own stories. So I want Vaughan to be one of those platforms that should be a platform that SEC will use in telling its own story.
The DG Securities and Exchange Commission, Lamido Yuguda, says with the ongoing recovery of the Naira against other currencies, the need for synergy towards attracting more foreign investors as a boost to the country's capital market can be better felt at no time than now.
What can the capital market really do to contribute to this recovery, to this improvement? Is really by attracting investments, especially investments now from other countries. And this is where VON is really very significant, because once you pass the message about the Nigerian economy, people know that they can actually invest in Nigeria, and they bring in their monies. They'll bring in these monies in foreign exchange. That foreign exchange will be used to fund our foreign exchange market. That is, the needs of legitimate users of foreign exchange in Nigeria will be met.
The two public institutions also pledged to partner in the fight against Ponzi operators, fake news and misinformation within the nation's capital markets. Chukunon Sonwa Boise, NTA News.
Next is a look at the weather prospect for tomorrow, Saturday.